At its launch, the Inspire 1 was a revolution. It turned tens of thousands of people into aerial filmmakers and now appears on professional film sets around the world. The Inspire 2 builds on this foundation, empowering filmmakers to be more creative than ever, whether flying as a team or operating as a single pilot. A dedicated 2-axis stabilized FPV camera with independently adjustable pitch gives the pilot a personal live feed, freeing the camera op to move any way they need to get the shot. Top speed is boosted to 58 miles per hour, 94 kilometers per hour, and ascent and descent is also accelerated. This speed doesn't come without protection. DJI's unmatched flight autonomy system comes to the Inspire 2, bringing with it an extended range of close to 100 feet, meaning faster flight with protection from what it can see. It also adds an infrared sensing system placed on top of the Inspire, extending obstacle avoidance to obstructions overhead. The new dual battery design increases flight time, hitting a maximum of 27 minutes when using the X4S camera, and also provides battery redundancy. Self-heating systems mean the Inspire 2 can be flown in extreme cold. The Zenmuse X5S Micro Four Thirds camera now has a 20.8 megapixel sensor with better pixel performance. It is capable of capturing 5.2K at 30 frames per second, as well as 4K at 60 frames per second. It also supports InCinemaDNG and ProRes recording.
And you just kind of look at it and you go, like, that's really small, but how can this little small thing give these big results? Normally I wouldn't think of using a drone for normal shots, but kind of made this really simple shot easily, you know, and look great. And I'm telling you, I'm really picky.
The Inspire 2 is DJI focus compatible for precision focus control. A broad range of Micro Four Thirds lenses are also supported, including zooms from 9mm to 45mm.
The 45 is pretty beautiful on this camera. We use that a lot for close-ups and has a great depth of field, and just makes me feel like, you know, that's kind of cinematic for me.
The Inspire 2 image processor, known as CineCore 2.0, offers InCinemaDNG, ProRes, H.264 and H.265 recording onto a detachable PCIe SSD drive with a maximum read and write speed of 6 gigabits per second or a micro SD card. ProRes is a widely used delivery method for post-production, offering flexibility for editing while not compromising image quality. But to get the absolute most out of what you shoot, the Inspire 2 also captures RAW.
Acquiring content on RAW just gives you more information to work with in your post-process. The RAW native InCinemaDNG format gives you the most dynamic range possible of that camera. Basically takes full advantage of the sensor and everything that it can see.
There isn't one shot that we compromised for detail, for color purity, for separation of images, for black, for low light detail, highlight detail. So I never could have told you that this particular footage came from a drone. It's just too good.
New intelligent modes, including Spotlight Pro and Profile, make cinematic shots easier for production teams and even for single operators. Spotlight Pro keeps the camera locked on the subject, rotating beyond 360 degrees to fix the target in frame as the Inspire flies. While Profile mode turns the camera to capture the subject's profile as the Inspire flies forward. By maintaining forward flight, obstacle sensing systems are able to protect the aircraft. The onboard FPV camera separates the flight view from the main camera view, effectively giving the Inspire 2 a dedicated tap fly camera. Just tap on the screen to fly in that direction and focus on camera control. During return to home, the primary camera with a maximum sensing range of 200 meters is used to effectively avoid obstructions. Live TV broadcasting has also been enabled natively through an optimized broadcast mode that streams smooth video at the 1080i 50 and 720p 60 live broadcast standard. The Inspire 2 brings better quality images, more power, and more intelligence to professional aerial filmmaking, setting the stage for more filmmakers to take to the sky.
The DJI Inspire 2 was built based on a deep understanding of what filmmakers need, whether they are shooting the next blockbuster or a low-budget TV show. With the new Cinecore 2.0 processing engine, filmmakers have access to unparalleled image quality never possible before with a ready-to-fly drone. Composed of multiple advanced processors, Cinecore is built right into the aircraft's nose and will work with any camera connected to the dedicated gimbal port. The Cinecore system consists of an image engine for recording H.264 and H.265 codec, and a cinema engine capable of capturing InCinemaDNG and ProRes codecs. The image engine is capable of capturing up to 4K 60 frames per second at 100 megabits per second H.2.64 or 4K 30 frames per second at 100 megabits per second H.2.65. Built-in 3D noise reduction and 3D LUT color management technology ensure that resulting images are vibrant and true to life. The cinema engine is capable of processing 880 million pixels per second, capturing InCinemaDNG RAW and ProRes at up to 5.2K. It also incorporates a much more precise color processing module, as well as rigorous dynamic optical block correction. All InCinemaDNG and ProRes footage are plug-and-play, making them instantly compatible with a range of software. This includes color correction systems like DaVinci Resolve, and NLEs such as Adobe Premiere and Final Cut Pro. InCinemaDNG RAW is lossless and allows for maximum preservation of dynamic range that would otherwise be lost. ProRes retains excellent fidelity across multiple compression cycles without introducing image banding. The Inspire 2's SSD media has been completely redesigned. The internal bus is upgraded from SATA to PCIe 3.0. NVMe specification is also fully supported, allowing the SSD to be compatible with future DJI products without the need to upgrade. It uses the universally compatible FAT and exFAT systems, allowing files to be read directly from the card without using proprietary software. Finally, almost all of the SSD components are contained inside of the unit in order to reduce the influence of vibration and impact during flight. With its advanced processing engine, rugged design, and flexible post-production workflow, Cinecore 2.0 allows the Inspire 2 to meet the challenge of any filmmaking environments.
We're using the Inspire 2 to really push the limits of camera language and storytelling, to really paint a picture of the Great Depression.
I've dreamt of shooting dialogue scenes with drones. I love the detached, sort of disembodied, fly-on-the-wall nature of the image.
With the Inspire 2, we try to improve on every single aspect. Flight performance, stability, camera capabilities. The obstacle avoidance based on the vision system now allows you to safely fly through complex environments and avoid trees, buildings, or bushes.
The smart features really are enabling. And what they do is they take a lot of the more mathematical, non-creative work that's also very tedious and difficult and give us the time to be creative on our own.
You now have the chance to make very complex and difficult shots with actually only one pilot. The pilot can just fly the aircraft and the active track will do all the gimbal work for you.
It's not that we're trying to replace or get rid of pilots. We're actually trying to empower pilots by having all of these camera moves available at the touch of a button.
Active Track now has different modes, like a profile mode, where you can easily track a subject from one side without changing the angle and the direction of the camera.
I think it's becoming a lot more commonplace. The advantage is obvious, especially on smaller scale projects where you can't afford cranes and all of the technicians that come along with that, and you can still achieve the same beauty that you can do with the more sort of the larger equipment.
Initially when we first thought about the idea of shooting an entire film on a drone, we thought it would come with certain creative and logistical challenges. What ended up happening was that the usability of the Inspire 2 actually enabled us to be more creative, shoot more shots, to really push the limits of large-scale storytelling.
Primarily, a colorist's job is to create and build a specific look for a movie. Cinematographers will shoot raw images, which means there is no set look built into it, and it gives me all the latitude within the image. So Claudio, when he picks the equipment that he's going to use for any movie or any project, you know, it has to specifically fit the need for the project.
What's kind of fantastic about this drone is that we're able to shoot in the raw format and come in here and have great dynamic range. I'll be able to manipulate the images any way I want to. It's just nice to have that color fidelity to be able to kind of squash and manipulate and push shadows up or push highlights down or just kind of create a mood. So it's I mean, I always like shooting in the raw. Get as much as you can.
You know, I went through the whole era from film to tape to now digital, so we've seen everything. But I think the most dominant format that we're seeing here in the broadcast and theatrical is now raw acquisition. It makes our jobs a lot easier when we have footage that has this much range in it and this much flexibility.
The Inspire 2 footage that I received for this film allowed me all the flexibility of the best possible image I could get. You know, the best possible exposure, color balance, these things that I need to make an image and make it look right are there. They're perfect. So the look that we were trying to achieve in this was more of a period piece, not completely monochromatic or sepia. There's more color in it than that and some saturated color. You know, we wanted it to feel kind of a turn of the century era color film. There isn't one shot that we compromised for color purity, for separation of images, for black, for low light detail, highlight detail.
The Inspire 2 has a new feature to it that's very different from the Inspire 1. It has a new SSD system that allows you to mount directly onto your DIT station or your computer. So you no longer need a proprietary application to mount the drives on there. You're able to go right from the Inspire's drives, plug directly into your dock on set, and be able to get instant access to the files that were shot.
There's 2 or 3 shots that are overhead shots where you assume, oh, you can only get that from a drone. But there's also walk and talks. I would never in a million years assume that was a drone. It can't be possible. It's too steady. It's too clean. There's no drift. There's none of the warbling on the outside of the edges. None of the typical stuff you get from drone footage.
As you could see from what was shot on this short, it's pretty versatile, and you're able to capture some pretty stunning images from this, and they're highly stable. The Inspire 2 definitely has a new place in this industry. It's a revolutionary camera, and I definitely look forward to seeing this on more productions in the future.
The new Spotlight Pro Intelligent Flight Mode on the Inspire 2 makes capturing dynamic shots with a single operator easier than ever before. Using DJI's proprietary visual tracking algorithm, the camera locks onto a subject during flight, regardless of the direction that the Inspire 2 flies. Spotlight Pro is composed of Quick Mode and Composition Mode. In Quick Mode, the camera will track a single selected subject while maintaining the desired framing, so the operator can focus on controlling the aircraft. In Composition Mode, the pilot can select an area of the frame to track. Once a subject enters the designated area, tracking can be enabled manually. Traditional visual tracking method works by locking onto a dominant color blob within the frame. This method cannot distinguish the subject from a similar background, nor can it track the change in distance between the camera and the subject. DJI's algorithm is separated into visual tracking and control system. Visual tracking works by using deep learning to recognize what's being tracked and continuously constructs a model of the subject. This means that it can perform complex tracking of shape, scale, as well as distance. The control algorithm is constantly calculating changes in distance and tracking angle, so that even if tracking is lost, the gimbal can continue to move smoothly without interruption. With Spotlight Pro, it's easier than ever before for operators to fly with confidence and still get those amazing shots.
Welcome
to the World Rally Championship. In this video series, we'll provide you with tips on how to film motorsport events with the Inspire 2. In the first episode, we show you how to prep and set up the Inspire 2. We also talk about finding the best flight path and drone team position. Before you head out to your filming location, make sure that all your batteries are fully charged and pack enough undamaged propellers, lenses and clean ND filters. Don't forget your cleaning accessories, formatted SD and SSD cards, remotes and screens. I also check out my flight location beforehand. If it's in a geo zone that has a flight restriction, I need to unlock it in advance. It's also a good idea to connect the DJI Go app to the internet and load or pre-cache the map so you can refine and review your flight path later. Alright, time to go. Usually the WRC video production team has already pre-scouted the most interesting flight locations on the tracks for us. These locations include tricky corners, bridges and jumps. To create smooth and complex shots at a rally, it's essential to have a pilot who flies the drone, as well as a gimbal operator who controls the camera gimbal. To coordinate your shots, you need to work together closely before and during the flight.
Height is good, give me some space. Okay, I got him. Heading around.
Okay, going faster.
Okay.
Once you're at the location, find the best spot for takeoff and landing, and walk the flight path to ensure a clean route. Maintain a safe distance between the aircraft and spectators, crew members, tree branches and other obstacles. Now let's set up the drone. Double check that the airframe, motors and propellers are in a proper state and that the compass and IMUs are calibrated. Check the camera lens and sensor again and attach an ND filter if needed. Make sure that all the DJI Go 4 app settings are correct. I always check the stick mode and make sure that the home point method is set to return to home. I also ensure that maximum flight height, distance and multiple flight modes are enabled and that all the custom button mappings are correct. If you want to take off at a dusty location, it is recommended to use a landing pad. This will keep your lenses clean and the motor safe while starting the aircraft. I like to call out loudly while the drone is taking off or landing, so everyone around me is aware. Drone's going up!
Even though the FPV camera of the Inspire 2 is helpful when navigating and flying, it is crucial to always fly within line of sight. If the drone team's position does not allow an unobstructed view on the approaching cars, it can be helpful to have an assistant in a different location cueing the team in via radio.
Car's coming.
Otherwise, you can listen to the sound of the car to time your movement. To test and rehearse our shots, we use the safety cars that drive through the stages before the race starts, or we imagine the cars passing by. This helps refining the drone and the camera movement. Alright, so we're done preparing. Time to shoot some great rally shots.
In the next episode, we'll be talking about the composition of good drone shots. We'll also discuss why the editing process should already be kept in mind while shooting. If you have any questions, just leave us a comment below.
The Circle is a narrative short film set in the Great Depression era. It's a father-son story about a starving artist, the father, who makes a living off of sketching street portraits of people. He is reunited with his son when he finally has the means to support him, or so he thinks he does.
Today was a very good day.
So here we have the father, who is a creative person who lives his life based off of creativity and artistic endeavors as opposed to monetary and materialistic endeavors. And he picks up his son and he tries to instill those values in him.
Draw a circle.
Just a circle?
Yes, with one stroke.
How big?
You decide.
I haven't seen my father in a long time. My mother's died, and he's a really good artist. It's kind of like I find the kids and I beat them up. I know what you stole from my dad. Give it back.
Filmmaking has been tethered to the ground for so long, and we've done things relatively the same way for the last 20, 30 years. And DJI, with their equipment, with their technology, is sort of allowing filmmaking to be freed.
What's unique about this particular film shoot is that we're using new technology to really push the limits of camera language and storytelling. Every single shot in this film is shot with the Inspire 2.
It was kind of an interesting way to kind of figure out a new way to kind of shoot this spot, and you know, I'm always up for a challenge, so I think that's kind of an interesting way to do it. And we kind of figured out ways of moving the camera. We put the drone on dollies, and I have this almost like a free remote head, which is kind of an interesting way too. We've done some shots of coming down into a bed where I just tilt down, and I have this lightweight remote head and just need a couple little pulleys, and it kind of made this really simple shot easily. And if it had been a bigger camera, that would actually been a lot more difficult. We did a shot yesterday where we just transitioned a shot, and people kind of wonder how you did it. You know, the drone's coming in for a landing.
So we made 3D printed handles, a specialty made just for this shoot, and these handles allowed an operator to catch the Inspire 2 out of the air and smoothly in the same shot transition into a normal handheld platform.
You have the operator for the bird that kind of brings it down, then you have an operator that can grab the bird and we safely turn it off, and then we kind of bring it into the shot to kind of finish it off in a seamlessly one orchestrated shot. You almost couldn't tell the handoff at all, even though there was, if you look from the outside, the handoff is pretty obvious, but from on camera, I feel it's pretty seamless.
It's been so exciting to see the innovative and imaginative ways Sheldon and Claudio have been using the drone, especially when it comes to interiors, and we're shooting dialogue scenes on it, which is awesome.
Laws change and money disappears and buildings fall. Giotto.
There's the obvious plus side that comes with a drone in terms of the freedom of movement and the beautiful wide open landscape visuals that you get, but then you can have the consistency of that same image if you're using a drone in ways that it's not typically considered to be used.
I think we're both entitled to an ice cream.
The dynamic range on the camera, on the drone itself, and being able to shoot in lower light, and using it for both day scenes and night scenes, interiors and exteriors, to me that's something I haven't really seen before.
I hope that people who watch this short film walk away feeling empowered, seeing that the Inspire 2 was crafted to be such a set-friendly, professional cinematography tool inspired us to create this short film. We saw the Inspire 2, we saw the form factor, we saw how small the camera was, and said, hey, let's tell a story with it.
If you're not working for a studio and you don't have a $40 million plus budget, you're so limited in terms of what you're able to do, and everything that DJI is putting out in the market kind of reverses that whole trend and flips it on its head to some degree. So we're going to have young filmmakers with not a lot of money making really incredible visual pieces, and a company like DJI makes that possible.
With all this new technology, all these new features, all these new things you can do with the Inspire 2, it still serves one thing: storytelling.
And I hope that talented people who watch this film go out and tell their own stories.
When you think of shooting a movie set in the Great Depression, you think of big Hollywood studio films, you think of big cameras and crews of hundreds and hundreds of people. Every single shot in this film is shot with the Inspire 2, and that affords us new ways to tell stories visually, really sort of rewriting and discovering new camera language.
One of the things that sort of jumps out initially about this Inspire 2 is the 5K capability. And being able to have a 5K image raw and what you can do with that in post-production and the way you can use it to your advantage, I think is really exciting.
With the Inspire 2, actually, you get to have the capabilities of a cinema camera in the form factor of a drone. And that's the reason why we want to showcase that it's actually capable of being used for the whole short film.
One of the great features of the new camera of the X5S is that we can shoot at resolutions up to 5.2K. So that gives us a lot of room for 4K output. While you're recording ProRes or RAW files on the SSD, you're actually able to save the proxy files on the SD card. They can have a different resolution than the actual file. So you can shoot in 5.2K on the SSD and you can shoot a 1080p proxy file, which makes previewing way more easier. Another cool aspect is that we now support more lenses with the X5S, such as the Olympus 9 to 18mm zoom lens.
The image is a lot more clear for me to judge focus, and that was kind of a critical thing for me to be able to kind of do this spot. I really need to be able to see depth of field and know, and have my focus puller with me and know that I can get that shot. Otherwise I wouldn't feel comfortable. What's fantastic about this drone is that we're able to shoot in the RAW format. It's just nice to have that dynamic range because sometimes I'm able to push shadows up or push highlights down or just kind of create a mood. So I mean, I always like shooting in the RAW. Get as much as you can, and then you can deal with it later. We did a shot yesterday where we just kind of ran through this house and went through doors and went through the other side and then went through another door and then came into the bedroom, and that worked flawlessly. It was a pretty good combination between me working with the operator and me operating the head separately, and we were able to work together in unison to kind of get that shot. I thought that worked great. And you can go both ways with it. You can go focus puller operator just to basically single operator as well too.
We're doing everything that you normally do with the stationary camera with the drone. And having these smart features along with the ability to remotely operate the gimbal has really freed us in a lot of ways, allowing us to get complicated shots that would have taken huge, expensive setups, done affordably, fast, and efficiently.
Welcome to the next episode of the DJI Film School at the World Rally Championship.
In this video, we want to give you some tips on how to fly a drone at a rally. We also want to talk about the composition of the various types of shots.
When planning your shots, always keep the editing in mind. Make sure to allow enough time at the beginning and at the end of each shot.
Start to move slowly, and when you see the car, ease into the movement. Timing is everything. Try to avoid panning and pitching the gimbal at the beginning. Rather let the car drive into the frame. Also try placing the car in 1/3 of the frame while moving towards the other 2/3. This composition technique is known as the rule of thirds. Let the car pass through the frame and briefly linger in the landscape to end the shot. Smoothly ease out of the movement. Try heading towards the horizon, for example. Don't try to follow the car for too long. Let it exit the frame at some point. We usually use 12 to 45mm lenses depending on the shot and the look we want to create. Remember that the X5S camera has a 2x crop factor, so a 12mm micro four thirds lens becomes a 24mm lens. Finding the right focal length is something that requires some practice. Do some test flights before the race to rehearse the camera movement. This will help you to get a feeling for each lens. Sometimes we switch lenses while swapping the batteries if we feel that a different focal length would help getting a better or different shot.
There are countless types of shots. You're only limited by your imagination and, of course, safety concerns.
A tracking shot is one of the classics. Follow the object in the frame by flying next to it at the same speed. If you track the car from the side, a longer lens works nicely here to transfer the speed of the action. A follow shot involves flying behind the object. A reverse shot requires flying in front of the object. For those two shots, a shorter focal length works best if you want a more dramatic look. Always maintain a safe distance between the drone and the car. Make sure to fly at a safe angle and height. To give the editor the opportunity to create a dynamic edit, it's always nice to have a variety of shots he can choose from. For example, you can try an orbit shot, which is when you circle around the object. A top-down is another good shot that gives you the opportunity to show a different perspective. The medium focal length works well here. You can either track the car or add a rotation while tracking simultaneously. For more variety and a fast-paced edit, also capture some pass-through shots. Here the object simply passes through the frame without any tracking. With a drone you can also mimic a crane move. The camera starts out close to the ground and then moves up in a crane-like motion. Try to avoid too many changes in the flight direction. Keep it simple. The Inspire 2 offers 3 different flight modes. You should choose the right mode according to your personal preferences and the specific shot you want to execute. The position mode is great for shots where you have to keep a precise flight path or hover over one spot. This is useful for a crane or top shot, for example. The sport mode provides higher speed and acceleration, but it's harder to control the drone precisely because of the high agility. Use this mode if you want to follow a car at full speed. If you like the movement to fade out softly, the attitude mode is a great choice. Here the drone does not stop abruptly if you return the sticks to a neutral position.
In the next episode, we talk about how to set up and operate the camera gimbal. If you have any questions, just leave us a comment below.
Welcome to the 3rd episode of DJI Film School. While the pilot is flying the drone, the gimbal operator takes care of the camera movement and camera control. Let me show you how to set up and operate the gimbal on the Inspire 2. Establishing the right settings is essential, and each gimbal operator prefers a different setup. It is crucial to optimize your gimbal settings to ensure a smooth workflow. You need to be able to work intuitively with your remote control. Set up your personal preferences and keep practicing. The movements will feel more natural each time as they are transferred to your muscle memory. When it comes to the gimbal stick configuration, some people like to have the gimbal pan and tilt on the same individual stick. Others prefer to separate the pan and tilt onto 2 different sticks. This can be helpful to control the axis independently, which often results in a smoother image. Make sure to map the gimbal roll on one stick so you can correct the horizon as well if needed. One of the most important things when operating the drone camera gimbal is finding the right gimbal speed settings. The Inspire 2 gives you a couple of options to configure the gimbal characteristics to your needs. You can configure gimbal speed, gimbal smoothness and gimbal expo separately for the pan and pitch axis. Configuring the gimbal for fast action sports often requires a different setup compared to shooting a landscape scene, for example. It is crucial that the gimbal reacts fast enough to keep the cars in the frame. On the other hand, we don't want the speed of the gimbal to be too fast. Otherwise, we would have to continually correct the framing to keep the subject in frame. The shot would be ruined if there was an abrupt camera movement caused by the gimbal operator. Sometimes you also have to adjust your gimbal settings depending on your location to find the optimal balance between speed and precision. Try to start with values somewhere in the middle of the range and check if your settings are too fast or too slow. Some shots require more pan and tilt work than others. The smoothing feature is critical and helps create fluid movements and hide subtle corrections. You want to obtain a smooth movement and not stop the image too abruptly, but you also want to have the ability to change the direction fast enough if needed. In a nutshell, set the smoothing as low as possible and as high as necessary. To ensure the camera never hits the physical limit of the pan axis, enable quick spin as an option. There's nothing worse than almost finalizing a shot and the camera hits the end of its spin and ruins the shot. Assign the gimbal recenter feature to one of the buttons on the back of the remote controller. During the flight, the gimbal operator can reset the camera very quickly regardless of the gimbal settings. This helps when there is limited time between shots. We usually use a fixed focus on all WRC events, since focus pulling on such a fast action would be very hard. We always set ISO, aperture and shutter speed manually to have full control over the picture. The shutter speed should be double the frame rate to maintain a good balance between excessive and insufficient motion blur. Use ND filters for bright conditions to bring down the shutter speed. Using these, you'll have full control over your camera aperture. The use of the slow motion feature is nice when shooting a rally because it highlights all the dirt and dust flying around. Just use a higher frame rate. So now you know how to set up your camera and gimbal to create some cool shots. And with the help of our excellent support crew, we managed to wrap up another rally. If you have further questions, please leave a comment below. Thanks for watching.